Famous person on the line.
Being told.
Person on the line.
Here we go! Here we go!
I'm being told there's a famous person on the line, and this is our guest tonight. It is a privilege to welcome, because look, the guests we get on this show usually I'm not sure if it's a list of the guests who are on this show or if it's a list of just like some sort of weird courtroom report of these are people who are currently up on charges. But that's why this is a unique occurrence. We have a legitimate A-list guest on the line tonight. Sarah Marshall.
Hello. My cat meowed right before you said my name.
Oh, worked.
The A-list guest is my cat, actually.
No, we worked that out in advance. Me and your cat.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, we got the timing down on that. It was kind of like a dance routine, figuring out how to coordinate the yawn right with the intro. Yeah. How are you tonight, Sarah?
Oh my gosh, I'm so good. I can't believe I'm the A-list guest, because I was thinking today, this is a wonderful and surreal thing for me, because I was introduced to the best show 10 years ago when I would once a week wake up hearing it because my boyfriend didn't own headphones, I guess.
The story of my life. Somebody overhearing the best show and then slowly accepting it. Not sure if they actually like it, just certainly hearing enough of it to accept that it is there.
You know, it's like that. Let me tell you, I got rid of the boyfriend, but you're still here. And yeah, there's something about hearing something in your dreams that makes it the most famous thing there is for you, right?
Yeah.
So, yes, thank you. It's great to be visiting the place where I went in my subconscious for so much of my life.
No, it's a thrill to have you here. Now, you are, of course, a comedy maker. You are a podcaster. You have...
It's true.
You have 2 shows? Do you have 2 shows?
I do. I have 2. One of them is like you watch a movie and you talk about it. So that one is more relaxing. But yeah, I do.
And that show is called...
You Are Good.
You're good. But you also have You're Wrong About.
Yeah, we have a contraction in that one.
Yes.
Because if you had a show called You're Good, it would sound like somebody didn't need to give you a napkin.
Yeah. Like the idea of like, do I have something on my face? Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
So, but You're Wrong About, how long is everybody loves you, first of all. Everybody loves you.
Uh-huh.
But everybody loves You're Wrong About.
They do. The irony is that if I were not making the show, I would never listen to it because I'm the kind of person who
It's
refuses
summertime.
to watch Succession.
Wait, what was that? It's summertime. What? Oh,
That was a sign.
Sarah, somebody's going to be getting a cardboard box with the plant in it as they clean out their cubicle tonight. I have a A-list podcast host on, and I got clips being played. This is the most embarrassing moment of my life, Sarah. I apologize from the bottom of my heart for that.
It's great. It feels like being
Sorry.
on Frank Wilkerson.
And then he stepped on your line. Oh, Sarah. Who did you say it's like? It's like
You got to learn to recover.
yeah, I do have to learn to recover. That's exactly what I look. And
Right.
Andrew, I'm teasing you.
Well,
Andrew, don't leave.
I'm the kind of person who gets into these like spiteful wars with culture where if, like with Succession, for example, it always feels to me like the thing on Seinfeld, you know, it's like, Jerry, you got to see the baby. And I'm like, stop trying to force me to watch Succession. Just leave me alone.
Yeah.
And then I'll watch it in 10 years and I'm like, oh, this is very good.
And then you'll
I
be
feel
like,
if I weren't making my show, so many people have recommended it. I feel like to their friends that it's the kind of thing where if it were recommended to me, I'd be like, leave me alone. Stop it. Stop trying to control me.
oh, I understand this all too well. I am still. What's the is Succession the biggest thing you're holding out on in that regard?
Oh, there's like older things. Like when I was I think the oldest one is that when I was a child, Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame came out, and I was like, I'm not watching it. I know that it deviates from the source material, and I've never seen it. And that movie came out 25 or 26 years ago.
Yeah. You were like, actually, Victor Hugo with the source material. This seems like it's taking a few liberties.
The Victor Hugo for Kids edition. And then looking back, it's like, why would you do that? Why would anyone need a Victor Hugo faithful film where everybody dies and there's probably some kind of racist message at its core, knowing French literature?
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about French literature. I'm not very smart, Sarah.
But what are you spitefully not watching?
Oh, let me think about this. The Wire, I've never seen.
I've never seen The Wire, but also because I don't understand it. I can never tell what's happening.
Well, I think these might be two very different issues then.
Well,
have you tried? So you've put it on and then bailed on it, or you just are?
I've tried to watch it a couple times, but I'm just like, I think I do like other boring shows. Like I liked Tanner 88 when I watched that.
Wow,
that's a boring show.
Yikes! That is peak boredom. That's Robert Altman saying, "Let's slow it down a little bit."
Exactly. Like this 1988 news cycle is moving too fast. Let's put on the brakes.
Yeah. So, yeah, because look, I like boring things also. But for me, The Wire just felt like everybody's just like, "Oh, it's the best show in the history of television." I'm just kind of like, that's enough for me to go easy on this one, not rush to it, because then I still have, in a worst case thing, if I turn out to be 100% wrong, it turns out I got to watch the best show in the history of television more recently than anybody else.
That's true. And you got to save it.
Yeah. But then...
Yeah.
But
it's
like,
a win-win.
Isn't it amazing when you also go for like some weird thing? It's just like, why are you not watching like The Wire? Like, but I'm like, did you guys see Carnival? And I'm like, people are like, Carnival looks terrible. Or did you watch The Mind of the Married Man? Like the other HBO shows around that time. I'm watching every episode of that and not The Wire.
Yeah. It's also kind of vindicating to a petty person when a show that was overhyped then is incredibly disappointing, which obviously I'm thinking of Game of Thrones, where at the end people felt terribly betrayed.
Oh, yeah. I never watched Game of Thrones. And everybody is just like, oh, after 6 years, I just threw 6 years away. I'm just like,
yeah.
Well, I heard from you guys that some dude came back or something. And that's kind of enough for me to feel like because it would be kind of like, people would be like 3 years in, they're like, there's dragons. We're like, okay, good. There's dragons now. Okay. I hope you're having fun. Hope you're having fun with the dragons. And then they're like, what's his face is back. Ron, whatever his name was, Ron Snow is back. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad Ron Snow's back. And then they're just like, that's like, oh, they're like, we think he might be coming back. There was this sign that he's coming back. I'm just like, well, I'm not watching it. I'm glad if you're excited he's coming back. That's great.
Good for Ron.
Hey, good for Ron. You're back, Ron. The actor's getting paid again.
Sounds like a senator from Nebraska.
Yeah, Senator Ron Snow. It would be RNE. Like that would be you picture him on C-SPAN.
Oh yeah.
No, but and look, if you had a great time with Game of Thrones, I'm very happy for you. You found a thing you liked, and you had fun with it. Good for you. I'm not trying to take it away. Well, a little bit, but it's okay. I just didn't watch it. I'm too busy watching I'm like, I think I've only seen this episode of Impractical Jokers 4 times. I could watch this one again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's where I find myself living sometimes. And that's not an ideal thing either, to be living in the lower self, if you know what I mean. Is that, yeah. I sometimes you have to eat good food. And I like candy.
Before you go back to your taquitos.
Wait, that's not good food? I thought taquitos were the good food.
Well, it depends on the source of the taquitos and also on how long they've been sitting out, probably are the two main things.
Yeah, I guess I'll say you're right. Taquitos are not the good food. So now, Sarah,
They're not the good us. Yeah.
Sarah, how long have you been doing the show for? How long has the show been going on?
That's right. Point? You attempted to ask me this question many minutes ago. So I started doing the show with my co-founder, former co-host Michael Hobbs, and we started recording in March of 2018, and we started releasing episodes in May of that year. So it's been over 4 years, which feels fast for it to be that many of those.
Yeah, and now the show is gigantic, and others that have been doing their shows for longer times are looking up at you on the meteoric rocket ride that You're Wrong About is on as you look down on us. And God bless you. I'm happy. Nothing but the best for you guys, just dwarfing everybody else.
just grinding and crushing our rivals out of existence.
Yes.
And just blotting out the sun from all directions.
Absolutely. Now what are some, for people who don't know, the show is basically you and a guest will take on a certain subject or theme that people might feel they have had some loose understanding of or definition of, informed by ultimately maybe less informed sources, and it seems like it's a game of telephone that goes on sometimes for years, even decades.
Oh yeah.
Like what are some of the ones you've been most surprised by?
Well, I mean, a great example is we did a 4-part series where Mike, when he was still on the show, presented to me the story of the DC snipers, which was this, I remember this being this gigantic news event. This happened in the early 2000s, and I think felt linked for many Americans to sort of are living in a landscape of expecting terrorism and looking for terrorism in what was happening around us. And his reveal in that episode was that essentially John Muhammad carried out these sniper attacks because he wanted to get away with murdering his ex-wife. And that was his motive, not to terrorize the DC area or the country, but to, ultimately get back around to domestic homicide. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's a huge reveal because we're so fixated on the sort of the narrative of the serial killer who's taunting the police and, law enforcement generally. And we never frame that as being about, coming back to domestic violence, even though that's, to me, clearly a much more important and prevalent problem than random stranger violence. And, that kind of reveal where we chose the thing that it feels more comfortable to be afraid of because it's more random and sort of evil based or connected to a story we feel comfortable in, as opposed to being about something kind of predictable, actually.
Yeah, it's amazing how strangely common and how finite the amount of themes there are ultimately.
Yeah.
And just the idea of relationships going bad and somebody abusing their partner or wanting to hurt their partner, or however you want to define it, is infinitely more common than the idea of a full-on bad guy out there.
Yeah. Yeah, like often the bad guys are kind of like hanging around the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So
and
that's
where we find them.
so that's one that really that seems to really resonate with you. One of the things I'm super fascinated by, which I know is an area of deep interest with you, are the panics that go through society.
Yeah.
One of the most notable ones would be the like the satanic panic of was that the early 80s, the very early 80s?
Yeah, starting in the early 80s and then straight on till morning, basically.
Mm-hmm. And how would you describe those to people who don't know what the satanic panic was, and how do you kind of see that? Like, I want to talk more about that with you.
Great. Yeah, I would love to talk about that with you. I mean, I think this has become easier to describe than it was when we started doing the show. I feel like one of the interesting things about having been doing it for a few years is that at the start it was like, you guys, there was this thing called the satanic panic where parents randomly crafted these narratives about how their children at school, based on like zero to minimal evidence, were being abused in a very specific way by teachers and other caretaking figure adults. So schools and daycares were two of the main sites that this unfolded. And I feel like now that's very familiar in terms of the groomer panic that's going on in this country. And this also, what we see in both cases is this thing where parents are feeling a lot of anxieties about the welfare of their children. They're learning things about how their kids like really are pretty endangered from a lot of directions. And then rather than addressing any of those threats head on, they're like, let's figure out if there are any lesbians in the schools or taking care of our kids. I think it's them. I think they're the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so the satanic panic really feels like it was inspired partly by this Canadian book called Michelle Remembers that came out in 1980. And it's this fascinating book where this woman goes back to therapy with her therapist, who, like, reading the book, you're like, so was she, like, they ended up getting married. So, like, they fell in love at some point, but it just feels like there was always a vibe between them. And she basically goes through this long process where he helps her to access her childhood memories of being ritually abused by a satanic cult in Victoria, BC, and being in a ritual where ultimately Satan himself is summoned and he like appears and he talks about his plan for the 80s. And then like the Virgin Mary comes and gets rid of her scars and tells her that she has to share her message with the world. And so the weirdest thing about this book and where the forest fire kind of like jumped from a small thing to a giant thing was that social workers at the time, some of them in the US, were given this book as training, and cops were recommended to read it because it was like, yeah, this is a nonfiction book and it's about satanic ritual abuse, which this Canadian doctor discovered. And it could be happening. And we've also just discovered that child abuse is a significant problem, like that statistically child sexual abuse is relatively common.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was this moment when it was like, who's abusing children? Maybe it's the Satanists. Maybe they're mostly the ones abusing the children. And then this commenced like quite a few phenomena, but most visibly and most irreversibly a series of witch hunts through schools and daycares and neighborhoods that in many cases convicted people on zero evidence of being satanic child abusers.
It's such a what do you think it is? Is it really just like I was saying about the DC sniper, just that people are just looking for the world to make sense?
I think and I think we're looking for villains, and I think humans are like fundamentally irrational creatures, and like our sort of spectacles of rationality make us think we're more rational than we are. I've come to think I guess the moon landing is a good example, because it's like, wow, we had to use so much intelligence and like raw brain power and like power as thinkers to do that. That's amazing. And it's like, okay, yes, but also, why did we do that? That was an irrational thing to do. We were like, we can't let the Russians get there. So we're gonna, this is what we're really gonna focus on. And I do like, I think space is cool, but you know, there was a war on poverty that really could have continued.
Yeah, and I mean that's one of the things. If you've seen Summer of Soul, there's a truly amazing section of the movie where it delineates between the black community, their opinion of the moon landing, and the just the white community's opinion of the moon landing, and everybody is saying, and the black community is just saying like, well, it's all well and good, but we kind of need help right now, right here, and we could kind of use those dollars to help humans in our community today. And it's a really interesting part because they pulled all this news footage and I saw Questlove do a Q&A about it, and there's a very interesting thing is that CBS would not initially release the footage of people of color talking about the moon landing because it did not get on the air, and they have a history of not letting that footage out if it was not aired, which is such a strange thing. And he had to basically hold their feet to the fire to go, well, there's a reason why this didn't air, and it's kind of systematic why you might not put other people's points of view on condemning the moon landing, or not condemning, just not being excited about it and being more concerned about things like poverty in the city, in our cities. And then CBS acquiesced and let that footage be in. So it's such an interesting thing that those systematic aspects kind of just reinforce things that you don't even realize they're reinforcing. It's like, well, that footage didn't air. It's like, well, of course it didn't air because you didn't want that point of view aired. And then everybody forgets that, or doesn't think people could have that point of view because they never heard it. So that's a little sidebar endorsement of Summer of Soul. Did you see Summer of Soul, Sarah?
No, I did. Is that the documentary that Questlove made?
It is, yeah, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
It's so great, and it really kind of tapped into so much stuff, and it's a beautiful movie. Now, speaking of movies, since you love movies so much, what's your favorite movie this year, Sarah?
Ooh, wow.
And what are you looking forward to?
I have seen like a decent amount of new movies this year, which is kind of rare. And I have to recommend for anyone who's in the area or visiting, there's an amazing movie theater in Portland called the Hollywood Theater, which plays like 35 millimeter prints and stuff of older movies. So I got to see The Warriors in the theater, which is a joyful thing to do. Very wet movie.
Yeah.
But I think actually I saw Bodies, Bodies, Bodies recently, and that's the first thing that comes to mind for a movie that came out this year, and I really loved it. And I think, it feels kind of like more a suspense movie than a slasher movie, although it has a slasher template. I really enjoyed its use of Pete Davidson, and I feel like it's kind of a trend. Like, I feel like it's actually kind of classic in a slasher movie to have a stupid twist. Like the twist, almost if I think about the great sort of canonical 80s slasher movies, it's like most of the twists are bad and they involve someone doing something that doesn't really make sense when you think about it at all. Like, why is Pamela Voorhees that strong? But this actually had a twist where I was like, what a great twist. It's believable. And it highlights something true about humanity. And it made me really happy. So, yeah.
Well, that's cool. There's a listener, speaking of the Warriors, there's a listener to this show who has a thing, I guess you'd call it a ritual, where he has two children and he shows them on their first birthday, he shows them the Warriors. And I found
Wow.
that to be slightly upsetting. I don't know what your opinion of that would be. That's might be a difference between our listenerships here.
I feel like I just wouldn't want to give them ideas, because what if then if you're like at the park and all the toddlers get together and they're like, hey, there's more of us than there are of parents.
Yeah.
Can you count, sucker?
Yeah, and they start clinking their their little bottles, right? Clink, clink, clink.
Yeah, they're already in charge, basically. So
Yes.
Yeah,
Warriors.
seems
And looks like
dangerous.
Warriors come out and play. So, also the Warriors,
it'd be really cute.
it would be kind of cute. I actually would want to see. I'd take my chances with that, actually.
Little toddler baseball fury
Yeah.
running on those little stubby legs.
Oh, see, now you're melting my heart, Sarah. I want to see this so badly. Little itty bitty babies dressed like in pinstripe uniforms. And
Yes.
and the thing with the Warriors is, if somebody had a cell phone, none of this would be happening. Or Uber, right? Like
It's
we
great.
we got to get
The
home.
number of movies that wouldn't exist with smartphones, it's like most of them.
Warriors might be number one because you'd be just like, we got to get home. It's like, yeah, okay, I got a lift on the way. It's 7 minutes away. The end. And it just rolls a
I
bit.
guess they could all be banned because of a low rating or something, and then they're moving through the city and the other gangs keep making TikToks about them instead of, so that would be the substitute for the radio lady, which would be a shame because she's probably part of the reason I do this for a living.
Is the DJ. Yeah. Well, I'm going to say this.
Yeah, Lynn Thigpen.
Hollywood, clear your appointment books. Sarah Marshall and Tom Scharpling are pitching two things. Warriors 2023, and then
Yep.
we're pitching Baby Warriors, the animated
Look
series.
who's warriors,
What?
if you will.
Yeah. And this is one of the few examples where I'm going to say that we should pitch this to HBO Max, and I'm going to kind of hope they kill it the way they killed all the other stuff. I think I would support them killing both of these projects off. I'd be like, man, it's fair.
Yeah. How much of a chance this is the only moment in TV history when Baby Warriors has a shot, which is an interesting statement.
Yeah. Give us a chance. Give us a chance to get Baby Warriors on the air. And when the people, somebody is saying Gangs of Goo York in the chat, which is
That's
pretty
good.
funny. That's great.
Do you think that it's the same, the world is the same, they're just, we just don't explain why they're babies. It's just they're all gangs and the cops are coming for them and everyone else is an adult, but they're babies. It's just how it is.
All I would say, Sarah, what explanation could we give? We just need to gloss
Right.
over that. What are we going to say? Yeah, ever since that bomb went off and all the adults became babies, everything's been weird around here. Then you'd be like,
The baby bomb, yeah.
Yeah,
The
you
baby
feel-
boom.
what the baby boom? Baby Warriors, the baby boom. So
I
anyway,
would watch that.
if we add 5 minutes on the front where it's just where we get the DJ, it just goes, a bomb went off and all the adults became babies, still acting the same way they acted as adults, but now they're babies. And now,
Now
Baby
here's
Warriors.
something I missed. I'm not watching enough new TV to know if this still happens, but I feel like something you don't see anymore is the extremely expository opening sequence. And I was remembering this because I was trying to find the opening sequence for Sci-Fi Channel's The Invisible Man, which was on 20 years ago and which my best friend wrote fan fiction about at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the opening credits were incredible. It was the main guy saying my name's Darian Fox and I'm an invisible man. I always thought that was just fiction, but then a secret group in the U.S. government implanted a gland in my brain. The invisibility comes from something called quicksilver. They told me that if I would become invisible, they'd let me walk free because I was a criminal. The operation was a success, and that's where everything went wrong. I was mine was a little wordier than his, but not much. You don't get that anymore.
those intros, yeah, they're amazing. Like the $6 million man, where it's just like, we can rebuild him and make him faster and stronger. He's the $6 million man. And you're just like, wait, I have a question. It's like, nope, show started already. No questions. Just watch him run around now.
Self-explanatory.
You're like, wait, but what about the, nope, too late. Episode started.
The best was Quantum Leap because it had 2 opening themes. It had the explanation theme, and then it was like, let's do music as well. So it was like 3 minutes of intro every week.
That's amazing. The Quantum Leap. Yeah. That's like you're taking on such a high concept show, and you're just like, but look, we got 12 seconds tops to tell everybody what this thing's about. We kind of don't have time to, like, it is funny to think about, like, if shows were updated, like if The Sopranos or suddenly it's like, my name is Tony Soprano. I'm a mob boss, but my family's driving me nuts. I go to a therapist to try to get help, but that's not doing much. Anyway, I'm trying to balance being a mob boss and a dad at the same time. This is what it's like being the leader of The Sopranos. And then...
Oh, it would be good.
Yeah, like every show you'd be just like, I don't think I want to watch this show. This seems stupid.
It's like how movie trailers were in the 1960s, where they just would play a 4-minute version of most of the movie. And I imagine if I were there, I'd be like, oh, great. I don't have to go now. Perfect.
Yeah, it would be. Maybe I like when you see a trailer now that gives a little bit of that away, and you just feel like something's so wrong with it, but every trailer kind of didn't care whether you knew what almost all of the movie was about. And they were also so star-based then. They would always be like just shoving the Cary Grant is like, and you're just like, Cary Grant, it's like it was so important that you just went to go see Cary Grant in a movie. That's like, that's enough. Just go see the new Cary Grant movie.
It's funny how I feel like Cary Grant, if your career works that way, then it's movie stars were just the original influencers, and now movie stars have become people who we have slightly less loving relationships with, I guess. Mm-hmm. But now it's like everybody gets to pick from a more specific range of like little smaller celebrities to be obsessed with. Like, this is a weird one, but like there's this, I would actually love to hear your reaction to this. This could be an inspiration for baby warriors. There's this Instagram account called Batumi Mama, and it's this woman who lives in Georgia, the country. When I first read about this, I was confused. And she and her husband have, I think, 21 babies, and they were all born to surrogates, and they were all born at about the same time. Mm-hmm. And then husband is also a Turkish millionaire who fled Turkey for Georgia because I think he was convicted of soliciting murder. And then I realized the other day, I was like, oh my God, Mr. Batumi Mama, separate from the murder conviction, has been in custody since June for money laundering. And I didn't even realize. And I felt like I had betrayed Batumi Mama, whose choices I find very troubling. And yet I'm also like, someone who makes such bad choices is endearing to me. So what a situation.
Yeah. Sarah, I think you might be on your own on that one.
Yeah.
I think that might be, I have my cross to bear. The listeners are mad at me now because I just made fun of Dodger Stadium for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I went there. It's really...
Can't do that.
It's really it's really a garbage hole. You should see it. They're like, but the Dodgers play there. And it's like, okay, I don't care. They play at a garbage hole then.
It's in carbonite, but that doesn't make carbonite great. Right?
Thank you. That's exactly... You know what, everybody? Han Solo was in carbonite. Doesn't make carbonite great. You just came up with a perfect retort here, and now I feel safe that I can push back on any of them with that.
Good.
Now, Sarah, I have a thing.
You're right to pedally hate something is big.
Yes. Now, you have some live shows coming up, right? You have live shows?
I do.
When and where, and how can people find out about them?
So we're going to be here in Portland, where I am, Portland, Oregon, at the Mission Theater. I think that's right. I have been prepping for the shows and not looking at where they are, so I might get stuff wrong about my very own shows.
You're going to be one of these people who's just like, what city are we in? What, like, you're going to be, it's going to be like Spinal Tap.
I want to be the millennial Dean Martin, really. I have thought of this for years. I think that Mike and I were like kind of a Martin and Lewis kind of a thing, and that I was the Dean Martin. And so I've been watching some Dean Martin videos to prep.
Okay.
And hopefully that will come through somehow. And then on Saturday, or on Sunday, actually, we are in Seattle at the Vera Project. We're going to be in LA at the Masonic Lodge at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery on Tuesday. And then in San Francisco, we're going to be at, I think it's the Armory or something on Thursday. I'm just embracing the fact that I don't know where we're going to be performing. But you can find out about it on our social media, on your You're Wrong About Twitter feed.
Yeah. And the Masonic Lodge, that's a nice place to do a show. Now that, because I'm not just making fun of everything in Los Angeles. The Masonic Lodge is beautiful. Sure, it's in a cemetery, and it's a little weird to be walking across someone's grandfather's grave to get to the show in time. You're clomping across just bodies, but that's neither here nor there. Actually, maybe it's not that nice. No, it's a very nice venue.
Maybe you're walking along, you're thinking about mortality, and then you arrive at the venue and you vow to like truly inhabit the moment and have a great time. That's that way.
That's the way to put it. I put these things out there, and you manage to spin them like Rumpelstiltskin. You spin them into gold.
This is why we're going to be a team for Baby Warriors.
This is it.
Because you need, a spoonful of sugar for HBO Max.
Thank you. Look out, HBO Max. We're coming up to next Tuesday before Sarah's show. We're going to come on up and pitch Baby Warriors. And Sarah, one final thing. We do a thing on the show here where if you're a guest, we only ask for one thing from you. We ask for a scoop.
Come on, give us a scoop.
Do you have a scoop for us?
What kind? I missed a word back there.
A scoop. We need a scoop.
Please give us a scoop.
Wow. Should I reveal like any of the murders that I've committed or something like that?
Well, those are more not scoops. Those that would more be under the confession than scoop.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Like what's going on that the audience?
What
can you wait here? Here we go.
Okay. This is much more fun. So I'm going to have two different co-hosts with me on stage. So in Portland and Seattle, I'm going to have Chelsea Weber-Smith up there, the host of the wonderful American Hysteria podcast. And in LA and San Francisco, I'm going to be joined by Jamie Loftus, wonderful,
amazing.
I think like one of the funniest people alive, and
so
also
funny.
A hot dog historian.
Incredibly
And
funny.
that's public knowledge, but what isn't is that the shows will involve some amount of people getting slimed, and that in the Jamie shows, the slime will be hot dog condiments. And I'm very excited about it. I'm getting us goggles because mustard.
Oh my God. So it's kind of like there's a little bit of Gallagher getting worked into the act.
There's a little bit of Gallagher, and also a lot of Nickelodeon, because I grew up watching kids get slimed on Nickelodeon, and that's a dream of mine, and I believe many other people.
What if you change for that night, you change your show from You're Wrong About to You Can't Do That on Podcasts?
I like that. Yeah. And yet you can do anything on podcasts, it would seem. So
Exactly.
It's,
You can.
It's a nicely ironic name.
Yeah. Now, Sarah, this has been such a thrill. You're amazing. I'm a huge fan. Everybody's a huge fan. Thank you for taking the time and coming down from the where you're doing the wave to the citizens. You're up on the balcony, and you're eventually you come down and you press the flesh with the peasants. And thank you for coming down and joining us for just a few moments. And now you can ascend once again to your tower.
You know what? I imagine that I've been in the truck that's driving the float, eating peanuts, which is much more fun.
Sure. No, I agree. Look, I'm just teasing you. You're awesome, and I really do appreciate you being on the show.
No,
It's so
I'm a
much
beautiful princess. It's true.
No, that's yes. You're a beautiful princess. Well, seriously, thanks for coming on. You come on anytime you want, and
I would love that. I have so many more crazy baby and non-baby movies to invent with you.
I'm ready. I'm ready when you are.
Great.
Sarah Marshall,
Awesome.
thank you so much.
This was so
Amazing.
wonderful.